We're gonna go live now.
It's prepared.
If you guys want to speak, just be aware.
I hear a happy birthday.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, I'll call to order the joint meeting here today. And Mayor, if I could just pass it off to you as we discussed, I'll let you lead things off. Make sure your mic's on too. Everybody's mic should be on.
Roll call.
Yeah.
we can barely hear the mayor. Can you turn up the volume, please?
Yeah, I can't hear anything. Nope, still can't hear him.
All right, can you hear it now?
Now we can.
Yeah,
We appreciate you coming together so that we can try and resolve and take a look at the situation and what changes we make up there. As luck would have it, I ran home for about 20 minutes.
Paul, you need to mute your phone because we can't hear him.
I said, as luck would have it, I went home for about 20 minutes and I got a phone call from an old friend and he wanted to know if I knew anything about the cemetery. And I told him, unfortunately, I know more than I want to know at this particular point in time. But we're here to discuss the request that the township has made. We're here also with an interest in an institution for the Ravenna area, which is the cemetery. I think that the previous meeting that we had was useful to me because we were able to look at some of the things that are causing problems for the township in terms of finances and in terms of cost. At the present cost at the cemetery and some of the things that we need to look at. I served on that board for a number of years when I was a councilman. And it's one of the things that I pointed to that showed that the township and the city could work together quite well. Frequently, the chairmanship was passed around and actually Bob did an excellent job when he was there. When he stepped down, I think that's when I got appointed to the board. The budget at the cemetery, for the most part, has remained the same over at least a 10-year period. At this point in time, because of added growth in the township, the percentages that were originally established have been closing towards the 50% level. It's a bit short of it yet, but it's headed that way. And this is all based on the evaluation of property in the city and the township. And then whatever that percent is, that's what was set up to as what each part would contribute. I think at this time we're looking for dialogue so that we completely understand with this. I have to tell you that I would feel bad that the township was not part of this cemetery. They have been forever. A lot of folks are buried there. A lot of folks will be buried there from the township. I'm going to defer to Mr. Semino for a brief history of this because he was involved in this when this cemetery was originally formed as a union cemetery. And he's much better at describing what happened than I am with that.
Could I just jump in real quick? Because I skipped over roll call, so if we could do that just quickly.
Mr. Kelty,
Here.
Ms. West,
Here.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Here.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Harper,
Here.
Mr. Koya,
Here.
Mr. Gibson,
Present.
Ms.
Yes.
I think we went over the history the last time we met. Not everyone was here at that time, not all the trustees. But, you know, we had a cemetery, Maple Grove. Let me make sure that button. Great, sorry. Maple Grove Cemetery existed for a long time. It's a rather austere, beautiful place in relation to how it's been cared for, how it appears, and the history that it has. And that's probably one of the premier points of it, the history that it has. But apparently, the township was control of the cemetery, caring for the cemetery. And they at one point brought a lawsuit to the extent that the city now, in 1995, 94, in that area, a little before. But at any rate, the city surrounded the cemetery. And as a result of that, felt that under the state statutes, it should be the responsibility of the city to maintain. And that lawsuit went before Judge Cainrad. And I believe it was 1995, Judge Cainrad rendered a decision that the township was correct, that the city surrounded it. As a result of that, the city was responsible for maintaining the cemetery. There was an appeal to the appellate court following that, and the appellate court affirmed Judge Cainrad in his decision that it was the responsibility of the city, and the township was excluded from any responsibility as a result of the city having territory surrounding Maple Grove Cemetery. And that sometime subsequent to that, and I believe that was probably around 1996 or 7, that the township, after having been excused from that responsibility, approached the city and asked that they become a part of it. The only way they could become a part of it was to form a union cemetery between the city and the township. And that, in fact, an agreement was reached regarding that. And there may have been a little amendment or so subsequent to that, some perhaps 10 years later, I don't recall exactly, but there might have been an amendment to that. But in all honesty, that's the way the cemetery has been maintained ever since that period in 1997, in that time period. And that's where we are as of today, that the Union Cemetery was formed. And, you know, I think we've discussed the issues. I believe Chad's letter reflected the fact that, you know, once the Union Cemetery was formed, that the only way that it might be disassembled would be if there was a concurrence on the other members of the Union Cemetery, and there only being two, the township and the city. And to the extent that the township would request that they be removed, excused from the liability, the responsibility, that the city, as the other partner in this, would have to consent to that withdrawal. And I think that's where we are today.
Well, just to add, I talked to council, many members, and I think the basic premise that we came away with, I think from our conversation, there was long list of conversations that I had, but the basic thing was we understand from your communications this year that there is some financial issues going on both sides. So the very basic question that we had was, are you open to investigating cost reductions within the cemetery? Where that might be, that's, I guess, up to us, but that was kind of the very basic question taken from council.
Well, I think we had mentioned in the letter from the attorney that first and foremost, we were interested in trying to get out of the contract over a sliding scale over a 5-year period. Of course, naturally, we all know that things aren't the best right now with the COVID and what your finances will be like, just like ours. But in graduating down the road over a 5-year period, things should hopefully have, everybody should have stemmed the tide hopefully by then. And maybe it wouldn't be as tough a pill to swallow as just getting completely out right at the get-go.
One of the things that was mentioned in our previous meeting was the fact that you had to take over the care of Grandview Cemetery. And at that time, and I don't have that sheet with me, I have a lot of stuff, but I don't have that sheet with me. There was a kind of a series of cost from when you first took it over to where it's running at right now.
Mm-hmm.
What is that costing a year right now to operate that cemetery?
Gail, I'd have to defer that to you.
In 2018.
Is it on? There we go.
Is that better?
No. Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
It may take a minute to, as long as the light's red.
Is that better?
There
There
you go.
you go.
So in 2018, there was a lot of disrepair in Grandview when we took that over. So we had extra costs in 2018. They continued into 2019. In 2020, we have deferred some of those costs, some of the things that need to be done at Grandview into future years because of uncertainty of revenue this year. So what we have expended out has been over $100,000 in 2018 and in 2019 of each of those 2 years. And we feel those are representative years of what a normal cost would be. So it is very close to what we have to expend out for Maple Grove.
How do you come up with 5-year plan instead of something much longer?
Well, we think 5 years would be fair, more fair for you to spread it out over those 5 years versus, say, a couple years or 3 years or something like that. We all know that we have friends, we have relatives buried there. I'm no different than anybody else in this room. I have a grandfather buried there. So, yeah, it is something you don't want to see happen. But I mean, I think that everybody needs to understand also that that the area is not going to fall where the grass isn't going to be cut and it's going to be in disrepair. Somebody will be taking care of it. But we also have to look at, you guys are responsible for your constituents just like we are. And ours do respect or do anticipate certain things done on a regular basis, whether it's trash pickup, getting the plows out there and clearing the roads and salting them, things that a lot of people take for granted. But for us, I mean, it takes up quite a bit of the budget to do those things. So And to take a cemetery on that were not planning on doing, it was mandated by the courts. Whether you think it's fair or not, that's just the way it was because it was in our jurisdiction. So I guess it would be no different than if something happened to the Catholic Church, you guys would be forced to take over St. Mary's. And, whether you think that's fair or not, that's just the way how it goes. So we think, at least we do, that the 5 years would be fairer and not a big a hit all at once, and it would be spread out over that time frame.
So what changes would you like seen since you want to make cuts?
I'm not asking you for any changes tonight. I'm asking you to respectfully consider our request of getting out of the contract over a 5-year period. And if that does not work for you folks, then we're gonna respectfully ask for, a counter proposal.
So can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming in very clear. That's excellent.
Okay. I think what Andrew started out by saying was if the city does not release you of the contract, how would you agree to go forward in terms of some cost saving efforts? And one other thing I want to bring up, I know nobody wants to talk about it, and I know this is a public meeting, but the Union Cemetery, when you look at the Ohio Revised Code, when you look at our contract, was built around the concept of property taxes to help support the running of the cemetery. Now, if we're at such a drastic stage between the two parties where one wants to just leave the contract, at the very least, I think that we owe it to history and, the preservation of this cemetery to at least consider the possibility of putting in place a property tax to help support the cemetery. What I'm trying to say is I think I don't think we're at the point where we want to look at disenfranchising you from the cemetery. And I think we need to look at other measures that we can put in place to keep the contract whole.
If I may interject, that does us no favor by putting a property tax on because we still have another cemetery to take care of.
Well, the property tax would help pay for this cemetery. And that's my point. It would release you from having to use your whatever funds you have in your general fund and other places where you raise revenue. It would raise revenue for the support for both parties to run the cemetery. And by the way, there are other things to look at. A more holistic plan might include trying to seek donations. A lot of cemeteries are run with donations from local businesses, from other support groups. Now, I know that takes time and effort to put those things in place. My only question is, what efforts can we do now to help make the cemetery solvent by possibly reducing costs and possibly coming up with other revenue streams to support it, to ease the burden for both parties, both the township and the city?
Well, being someone who's tried to be fiscally sound, I'm not in favor of another property tax. Our constituents are taxed. Whether it's the school or whether it's the township, or it's the city, we can't go back to a poor district and asking for more money. When our expenses at our house go up, we can't go to anybody to ask for additional money. We put it in our budget. We cut costs. We don't go back every time and ask for an increase in tax or property tax. So I vehemently oppose a property tax. Again, we're here.
I would just ask that, we come up with a more holistic approach to the problem rather than just your proposal to release yourself from the contract, even if it is over 5 years, that might be, I'm guessing that's going to be a tough sell for the city. And so if it is, what alternatives, because I understand what you're saying, I understand that the township is in a difficult position because of this other cemetery. I'm not saying we just say no and move on. I'm saying if the answer is no from the city, we need to look at other methods to help you. And I'm not saying we will put in a property tax. I'm just saying that the contract was built on that premise. I'm not sure historically why it was not considered initially or since then. And we can look to other ways to raise money to salvage this agreement. I'm just saying we need to put things on the table, not to take an extreme approach to this.
Well, this is what I like to do. We put a proposal on the table, trying to get out in the 5 years, and I appreciate your offer. I think we need to go back and have some more dialogue. I mean, again, I oppose raising property taxes. I think we need to sit down and come up with some ideas, and I think in the interim, you guys do the same, and you present that to us as a township. And we go from there.
Having a hard time hearing you when you talk, Hank. It's not coming through really loud at all. I'm not sure if you're close to a microphone or not, but it's really difficult to hear you.
Sorry.
I'll agree with that.
I apologize. I dropped my mask a little bit. What we would like to do is go back as a township and have some more discussion. And I think it would behoove the city to do the same. As I indicated earlier, I'm not a big proponent of going back to our tax base and asking for more money, especially for property tax. People are taxed out. So I think we need to go have some conversation, that you guys need to have some conversation and submit a counter proposal to us outside of a property tax. And maybe it will be a favorable proposal.
So this is a conversation then, I guess I would kind of like to see a conversation together. I mean, this is something, it's a union cemetery. It's something that, that the city and the township, or not a city and a township, is Ravenna. Just like the school is Ravenna, just like, a lot of other things that we have. We can't sit down and have just some conversation, look at things, discussion about it. I mean, I see why wanting to do it separate, but it would be kind of nice to do it together to hear each other's points of view, because your ideas might be different than ours.
And we can get back together. I'm not saying we keep sending love letters. I think we just need to go and have some dialogue. You guys have some dialogue. We come back at the table within, within a short period of time.
Yeah, I think if the council as a whole, the city as a whole does not agree to our offer, then you come back to us with a counter proposal, and then we'll go from there, and see. Yeah, nobody wants to get out of this. I mean, it is what it is. We weren't looking at taking over a cemetery back in 2018 that had hardly any assets, no money in the bank, a roof on a mausoleum that rained water. Smelled the markers and the closures. A lot of those needed replaced. It's very expensive to buy an electric lift to get the caskets up to the highest level. We tried to do some things that were, try to be smart about it, like maybe borrowing or renting, but that stuff doesn't work. They don't want to do that. So you had to go buy that stuff, buy things that all of a sudden you were a caretaker of a cemetery that had extra expenses that you never anticipated. And, that's was quite a hit on the budget. Not to mention the normal things that keep going on every year, like the increases to our insurances, our health insurance every year. And I think
That was a question I had. Where did we come up with, where was it last left with the payments of with the health and coverage with employees? Do they pay half now, or are they paying something towards it? I couldn't remember.
That is correct. They're not paying anything, Amy. They're paying.
They're still not paying anything. At one point, I thought that the last time,
$250 per year per employee. I wish I could sign up for something like that.
Yeah, and I think that
yeah,
was
that's kind of unheard of.
back at the January meeting. At the last meeting that we had, that was the first thing that I brought up, and I think that was the jumping off point. There's some things that I think, coming from my point of view, and council jump in, but when I can't put myself in your shoes, I don't know what your budget needs are. So we could come back with a budget proposal, but when we're talking about things like, you know, outsourcing the cutting of the grass, like I know Grandview does, or looking at healthcare or the part-time workers, it's something we can't do, you know, by ourselves. We're going to need input from the township. So if we could get some of those, you know, that back and forth, I think that's what we're looking for. I don't know that,
Would
I don't know that we're going to be able to come up with the perfect solution.
Right. Would this be somewhat the job of the board members that, you know, for the liaisons for council? Is this something that, you know, they could talk about amongst their meeting and come up with ideas and then bring them back to us? Because we really, like you said, Andrew, we don't know, you know, what they're doing, what's going on as far as, you know, cost savings measures, you know? So, how could we get more of a grip on understanding so that we could provide a better proposal on this?
Well, I'll say the cemetery hasn't had an increased income since back in, I believe, I might be off by a year or two, 97. So they're operating on the same income as they were for, if I'm not mistaken, 23 years. And they've had different expenses that have gone up, but no increase in income. And
I would submit to you, I bet you there's probably some taxpayers out there that haven't had an increase in their salaries throughout the years either.
well, everyone's had this is going for 23 years. So I believe everyone's had some kind of an increase periodically, at least over time.
You're talking about the budget. You're talking about the budget, right?
No, they haven't had an increase in money coming in from the township or the city for several years.
For the budget, going towards their budget. I think you and Mr. Gibson were talking about two different things.
Okay, he's still not coming in. I can hear him, but it's not great.
He was more talking about how people don't quite get the increases in their pays, where you were more going towards the monies coming in to substitute the appropriations for the cemetery.
Okay, well, what I was saying, even if people don't get an increase every year, they have received something periodically over time. I know people have had increase in pays over 23 years, but exactly how often, that's just different between each company, organization, that varies.
Can you elaborate what you mean by income? Are you talking about the fee schedule, the costs for the sale of a plot, or the cost for opening and closing? What do you mean by income? How do you define that?
The money they have coming in from the city and the township, not from the sale of plots. That might have gone up some, I'm not positive, over 23 years, but just money coming in to cover any type of expenses that have gone up over the years.
So are you saying that the township is paying the exact same amount now that it did 23 years ago?
Well, I don't know what they paid in 23 years ago, but it just depends how the property taxes for them have changed.
Cheryl, were you going to say something?
I think I know where the miscommunication is going on. I think what Paul is trying to figure out is what is we know the percentages, but what is the dollar amount annually that the township contributes to the cemetery and the city contributes to the cemetery to make up their budget?
Well, I mean, it's spelled out in the contract. There's no set percentages for township and the city. Again, this is the terms that are used. The tax district is the combination of the city and the township. And then once a year, the auditor of the county provides the relative home values, and then a prorated percentage is established by that. So I think what's been happening is, and this is, I would think, good news for the township, property values have gone up in the township in a higher rate than in the city, so that their percentage of paying for the cemetery has increased. But it's never been set that we pay 60%, they pay 40%. It changes every year based upon those house values. And I would love nothing more than to see the home values in the city just skyrocket so that our percentage goes up. But obviously something like that's not gonna happen overnight. But the budget, I think what Paul is saying is, and I don't know the number of years, but the budget established, in other words, how much money it takes to run the cemetery, let's say it's, $500,000, then those percentages kick in, whatever the percentages of the home values, and then we take that percentages and apply it to the total budget, and that's how much the township pays, that's how much the city pays. And the budget apparently hasn't gone up significantly over the last few years. I don't know about 20 years.
That's true. It hasn't.
Do any of you, this is a question you may not even know the answer, but
I can't hear anything. I don't even know who's speaking.
that's Frank. Sorry about that. My question is of the township folks or legal people here, does anybody know what the motivation of the township was to form the Union Cemetery? Because they're the ones that initiated forming it. You know what the motivation was for that? That doesn't really, just pull it down, Pat.
Oh, my voice, you can hear me. I remember the two trustees, Bob Cherry, myself, and Mel Cole, felt that because a lot of our people were buried, same as city people in the cemetery, that we should probably pay for part of that and help, so that it was well maintained and everything. And that was the original reason.
Okay, that's what I thought it would.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is the price the same prior to this? So if you were a township resident before we joined together, were the plots more expensive than they were for a city resident? Was it to provide for a discounted rate for the plots? I mean, I'm not sure because I wasn't, I don't know how that was, prior to that. But was it, did it include like a savings on the price of a plot there?
I'm not sure.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't it, I thought it was 500 for resident, 700 for non-resident.
So prior to them joining, it would have been an increase on plots. Would that be correct?
I don't know prior, but as of today, that's my understanding.
Okay, I was just curious what it was prior. Okay.
So then I'm assuming if we were to dissolve the contract, then it would increase the price of plots for the Ravenna Township residents.
That's what I
Yes.
would.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, that's not the direction that I feel that we need to go. I feel that we need to explore other options in cost reductions and other revenues. I think that it's very important for both the city and the township to remain partners, not just in the cemetery, but many other purposes too. We are one community. Nobody says Ravenna Township or Ravenna City. We are Ravenna. We're one. And I really want to work to keep it that way, in a beneficial way to both sides.
I agree, Cheryl. I also think that, I know you guys are saying all of the costs for Grandview, you know, obviously those costs are in the other cemetery too. So coming together and having a conversation to see how we can be more efficient with both truly is going to help all of us as far as figuring this out, because regardless, both cemeteries need a lot of work. Both cemeteries need to be maintained. Both cemeteries need all of this. So, you know, whatever the conversation comes from it, it's going to be beneficial to both of us.
Yeah, because there's a big cost coming down the road to Maple Grove as far as the chapel. And that's been put off because of the cost. No one knows the exact amount, but it's going to be quite high when the time comes. It hasn't been used for a long time because of its condition.
So, I mean, just, I guess unofficially then, without taking a vote, then you guys would say nay on the 5-year graduate plan.
I think it's something we'd have to discuss. Ron, I don't want to leave Matt and Tim. Do you guys have anything to add? It sounds like right now it's kind of go to the drawing board, come up with something. And then before we leave tonight, we can kind of come up with a couple dates for another one of these meetings, and maybe we could discuss.
Yeah, because I don't think we need to let this go into sleep mode.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that Tim or Matt, if you have anything that you want to add, that we don't leave you out.
Well, I did want to mention that my sense of the issue is that the city does not have an interest in releasing the townships from its obligation in this cemetery. So to talk about that, here's a proposal that we want out in 5 years. Do we have a counter proposal? My sense is we do not have a counter proposal to that at all. Our counter proposal is that we maintain the status quo of the contract and the way that it is drawn up. So that's my thought on it right now. Looking at cost saving measures, I think is something we can talk about, but to view that, well, you've made a proposal, what's our counter proposal? I don't think that's the direction. My sense is that that's not the direction that the city is interested in moving in this at this time.
And I would just like to say that I think it's in the best interest for the residents, both city and township, that we work together and work this out. We need to come up with a resolution that works for both sides. And I think it's doable. We just need to come together.
Anyone else? Are we good? Okay. Council, and then come back and see if we can take a look at the real quick. I mean, next Monday, correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have a meeting. Is that your week off?
That is correct. We meet tomorrow night.
The next Monday, that's too soon for council? Council on Zoom? Is that too soon? Are you comfortable with next Monday, the 26th? Tim, you're unmuted. Is that do you think the 26th? Too quick?
That's quick.
I'm not sure what we would be able to plan, discuss, and to put into place in that short time.
I will be out of town next Monday, so I will not be here.
Amy, would you be back for the following Monday?
I will be back on that Sunday. Yes. So,
Okay.
I have a question of order here. Can the council vote tonight that they don't want to accept our proposal?
No, I think when this was something, correct. We discussed that the way we have to prepare the legislation, take it through the committees. If
Okay.
we do not take it through committees, we need 3 signatures of council, which I do not
Alright.
have to vote on, so.
Thank you.
I do agree with Henry when he says that we don't want this.
Talk in your mic, Frank.
I agree with Henry that we don't want this to fall by the wayside by not addressing it promptly.
And I may have gotten too anxious at the 22nd.
But I too believe that it will be very difficult to get this straightened out in a week.
Yeah.
And the following Monday then will be our regular council meeting. So sometime beyond that, I think, is where we need to be.
I think November 23rd is our week off, if I have the dates correct.
Yes.
I don't know if that might be.
23rd, you want to go that far?
We could take,
That's 30-something days. You don't want to push it out that far, do you?
About the 9th.
How about the 9th of November, if everybody checked their calendars?
we may have to push committee meetings. Those are usually,
It'll be like tonight.
We have the 9th off according to my calendar.
Oh, that must be.
oh, we've got 5 Mondays. Okay, yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Do you think we should have some subcommittee, like even during the day with maybe some, 3 people, even if that helps to at least start diving into some of this and then bring it to council?
Yeah, I think on the city side, and that's probably something we could discuss, logistics on who's meeting when. We want to have a smaller group meet before.
I do have another question. Can you hear me? Okay.
Like,
I guess, let me ask Gail,
Maybe we get closer back.
Gail, are we close to half of what the city's paying?
Yes, yeah, we pay 45%.
Okay, that's what I thought. In my opinion, is if it's hard to get a consensus with so many people, so I would suggest an equal member from the township and an equal member from the city, since we're paying almost half now anyway, to sit down, whoever you choose, and to go through the options. Because I think, like say, since we're paying almost half, I think we should have an equal say also on the options that we have. And instead of maybe everybody meeting, because when you have this many people, it's hard to come to a consensus. And I think it'd be better if we took half and half and had a meeting with just those people with different options. I think you'd get far more done than that way.
I think I'll discuss it with council. I'm not too sure of the logistics if I feel comfortable with leaving everyone out, but I'll discuss with them and see what everyone thinks, and we can kind of.
Well, this would just be come up with options. You wouldn't be leaving everybody out and saying, well, this is kind of what we can maybe come up with. Because like say, I know when you try to have a lot of people and all, everyone has an idea, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
To form a plan.
You got a date, Mr. President?
Was the 9th work for everybody?
Isn't Veterans Day coming up? Is that coming up?
Yes.
11. Pardon me?
Monday.
Okay. So that would be, is that our holiday or is the day after Veterans Day is our holiday? Okay, gotcha.
The work?
Yeah.
The 9th?
That work for you? No?
Would you repeat that and just a little louder?
Yeah, 6 o'clock on Monday, November 9th.
That'll be fine with me.
Fine with me.
That's good.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you.
Council, we'll stop the YouTube. I am going to shut down the video for 10 minutes until 7 o'clock.
You want us to stay logged into the Zoom?
You can stay logged in or
Okay.
hop back on, whatever your preference is.